Hello and welcome back to this edition of Bayou Time. Again, your host, Keith Whiteside. And I'll stress licensed clinical social worker because the two guests that we have on tonight are providing programs that make a difference for the people in our community. Very glad to have with us from Lafourche Parish District Attorney Christine Russell. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, as always.
Absolutely. Sitting next to her, we have Ms. Jennifer Richard, who heads up the drug court there, First Assistant. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And so one of the things I think, Christine, people don't always realize is all of the wonderful things that you do, and especially the Advocacy Center. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, back in 2005, my predecessor, Cam Morvant, was very passionate, as I am, about our children and victims of sexual abuse. And the Advocacy Center, really nationwide, had been around for years. And so one of his things was starting that center. So in 2006, we were able to open our doors, the Children's Advocacy Center of Lafourche. You know, for people who do not know what an amazing place it is, before we had an advocacy center, when a child would make a disclosure of physical or sexual abuse, maybe to a teacher, maybe to a counselor, that child was interviewed about that incident or incidences about 6 or 7 times before they ever would get to the district attorney's office. I mean, they had to go through an interview with a police officer, maybe social services, maybe a medical provider. What the Advocacy Center will do is we have agreements with all of the agencies that I just mentioned. But if a child would make a disclosure, that school counselor would not interview that child. They would reach out to law enforcement, who would then reach out to our Advocacy Center, and usually within 24 to 48 hours, an interview would be scheduled. That child would be brought to the center. We have a trained forensic interviewer, and I dare I say one of the best in around, Shannon Grow, and he would interview that child, and all of those individuals from different agencies who would need that information from that child monitor the interview in another room, and Shannon, with an earpiece, is able to hear the questions they would need. That interview is put on a disc, then provided to law enforcement and for their case file, given to the DA's office, and then the Code of Evidence allows us to use that tape in court when we finally try that case, and it also will allow the defense lawyer and the defendant to see what that child will say. A very powerful tool, but the most important thing about that center is it reduces the trauma on our children when they have to tell that story. And you know, when you ask adults, can you imagine taking one of the most intimate things that could ever happen to you and sharing it with a bunch of strangers? Now imagine if you were 5. And so our centers, and Terrebonne has one as well, provide such an amazing service to the children in our community.
And you mentioned a word, traumatized, and it's a traumatic event. No matter how or what happens, that's traumatic. If we can reduce re-traumatizing by them having to tell that story over and over again. And then the other issue that comes up is trust. It's one of the foundations for what it is that we look at. They've got to trust themselves as a child. Am I telling it right? Did I do the same? So if they've got to tell it 6 or 7 times, it is re-traumatizing, and then they're starting to question themselves. Do they not believe me? Is that why I had to do it again?
Absolutely.
And so there's all of these things. So simplifying that and making that process streamlined is so much better for that child. And quite frankly, that's what it needs to be about.
Yeah, and those are excellent points. And when you have a trained forensic interviewer who's gone through extensive training on how to have that conversation with children where you don't lead them in, but you just listen and gather the information, that's critical. And so your forensic interviewers at your centers are well trained. And they have to testify in court and back up why they do what they do and how they do it, and they're following the procedures and protocols. And we're blessed, and I know you guys in Terrebonne are blessed as well with your center. And look, people always ask me, do we need it? Like, do we have that much of a problem? I can tell you in 2006, we had about 116 interviews. Last year in 2021, we're almost at 300, and we're at 255 this year. Yeah, we do. We have a problem. And we always ask each other, is it because there's more abuse? I like to think our children are just braver, and they're coming forward because we are so open about having that discussion with our children about that it's okay to stop. It's okay to say stop, and it's okay to come forward and say, this is what's been happening to me, and I want it to stop.
Florence Rush in The Best Kept Secret years ago talked about the importance of realizing that 1 in every 2 females and 1 in every 3 males will have some inappropriate conversation or situation impact their life.
Isn't that incredible?
And I thought, oh man, because I read that in college many, many years ago, and I thought, there's no way. Listening to the people with the Children's Advocacy Center, listening to what our DA's office have bring to us and talk to us about, I think that that's exactly right.
But look how far we've come.
Yes, that great point, because that's exactly where I was going with this. Our services are so much better, our process is so much better, and accountability is so much better.
Absolutely.
And for anyone who ever has a thought about abusing a child, I want them to hear and see this. Don't even think about it, because you will be held accountable.
Absolutely. And look, we do not want to put children through a trial. We do our best not to.
Right.
But we will make sure, we'll be the bad guys. We want to put them away. And so we will work with our children, but we have got to put a stop to it, and they have to know in our communities that it is not acceptable and that they will go away and do some jail time if they touch our children. And so our center is growing and getting better. I promised you once I could say to you, and I'm glad to know you're the first person I tell to, 2023 we'll have a counselor. We have reached an agreement. She'll be part-time, one day hopefully full-time, and are so blessed to have her on board.
A social worker coming to the Advocacy Center in Lafourche. Congratulations.
Thank you
once
very
again,
much.
Christine.
We've been working hard on that. We're very, very excited. And when you talked about the word trust before, these children will come in, meet our interviewer, and never have to leave because their counseling can be there, and they can trust the building that they're in. That's huge for us.
It's like this safe space.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those are really important words to be able to do that for a child who's had some of that safety removed from their thought process.
Yes.
So that's really good. Safety and presence.
I love
That's
that.
what drug court does.
That's
right?
exactly what drug court does.
And so I've been able to kind of watch that process from a distance, kind of been able to see it developed in both of our parishes, been able to be part-time as a social worker helping with that. Tell us about what's happening with drug court in Lafourche Parish, because it's exciting.
So look, drug court is absolutely one of my favorite things to do in the DA's office, because what we do is help people to put their lives back together when they suffer from an addiction, a substance abuse disorder, substance use disorder, and we help them to put the pieces back together so that they regain the trust of their families, their employers, their community, and it is just such a fulfilling and worthwhile program. I can't say enough good things about it.
The best part to me about drug court is that it says, okay, you made a mistake. Instead of throwing you away, we're going to give you an option.
Yes.
And then it gives them the ability to stay accountable, be transparent, and move forward from the mistake. Right?
So it is, and a lot of people don't want to take that opportunity at first. And we just had a graduation Monday night, and we graduated, I believe, 7 or 8 graduates this time. We have graduations twice a year.
Twice a year, right?
So this was very exciting, and for me, being in the drug court for the last 5 years, I've gotten to know some of these folks and what their stories have been and what kind of things they've gone through in their lives, and to see them reach this milestone and this accomplishment is just so rewarding. And I'm so proud of all of our graduates and all of our participants, because the program it's hard. It's a lot of work, and
Labor
a lot.
intensive.
Yes, very intensive. There's 4 phases, and the work gets easier as the phases progress. That's how it's designed to be, so
Right.
that we don't throw people back out into the world. They ease their way in.
Right.
But all of the participants, or most of them that started and spoke at graduation, said the reason they took the program was because they didn't want to go to jail. It wasn't because they wanted the help with their problem, it was because they wanted to avoid spending time in prison. But what they saw when they entered it and they completed it and they did the work is that the reward was not staying out of prison, it was the rebuilding of their life. And they were very thankful and appreciative and recognized that they've gotten such a benefit.
So instead of just the potential of that negative impact, they got to see the positive aspect of their life improving.
Yes.
It's very hard to see that on the front end. That's why the program starts where it does. We're going to prevent jail time. We're going to prevent you from having to do this if we do this. And
Yes.
they've got to grow as the program grows.
They do, and we require things such as employment you have to have a job, and we stay on you to provide a job. Or if you're retired, we have some folks that have reached retirement age and they're not working, but they have to provide productivity. How are you spending your time? Who are you spending your time with? There's random drug screens
Right.
and weekly testing, daily testing, book work where they do programs with names such as Driving the Right Way or Thinking for Good, and all of these different, MRT is a big part of drug court.
Right.
And those programs just help to bring such a self-awareness that people, they're just lacking it when they start.
Right.
And so one of the things that I like is our graduation, we require phase 1 candidates to attend.
To go, right.
Because when you start in phase 1, they're not really seeing why we're making them do all of these things.
Right.
But to see the testimony of these graduates and to be able to actually dismiss their charge and put that under Article 893 where they can have it removed from their criminal history, it's my favorite thing to do in the office.
I love it. And the other thing is letting them see the big picture early on, introducing them to some of those things. You got to be awfully proud about this program.
Oh, it's amazing. And like she said, often in the things that we do in our office, you put people in jail and you prosecute. And, but when you have a program that rebuilds, that improves your community and improves the well-being of a human being, that is the best part of it, what we can do. And so, we want people to know we're not just about putting people in jail. We are truly trying to make a difference in our community. Public safety, but also about improving the quality of life where we live. And if we can have a program that can teach someone how to make better choices and hopefully give them a better life, since life is so short, then I think it's our obligation to do it. I'm proud of Jennifer and the hard work she puts into it, the entire drug court staff. Judge Miller has been the judge for the past couple of years. They do an outstanding job in turning lives around because they're committed to it, and you need people that have the passion to do it.
It's interesting, the two things in summation that we've talked about in these two segments is about taking care of the kids, making sure that they're safe and supported and loved. And interestingly enough, very often with drug court, it's about helping them reconnect and kind of get focused back and maybe having a relationship with their family and their kids again.
They speak of that all the time.
It's one of those things. I got a chance to do a little bit of the parenting education for them. That was the big focus. I need to get this right for my family, for my kids. Thank y'all for making a difference for our communities through kids, through drug court, and putting those families back together. It's very much appreciated.
Well, we're blessed in doing the jobs that we do, so thank you.
I love it. And social work in
Absolutely.
2023. I love it. And guys, that's going to do it for this particular segment of Bayou Time. Don't go anywhere. A lot more local programming here on HTV.